Welcome back, everyone, to the Kart Rider Drift League. We are back with Preseason 2. Had a bit of a month break. Now we're ready to get started with another preseason. My name is William Cho, joined by Peter. And I think that break was nice, but it's very nice to be able to get right back into the races.
Yeah, well, the KDL Preseason 2, we're back now, and we've gone through a bit of changes ever since Preseason 1, and I'm finally getting to see some of that happen on stage today, and I'm sure the viewers are excited to see that as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you've been keeping up with the game, of course, you know that, right, going into the, new season of the game itself, there were already quite a few changes in terms of how items worked, etc. New tracks showing up, obviously some of them old ones kind of being refurbished and renewed here for Kart Rider Drift. But at the same time, we even had a recent patch, actually, just about a week ago. So still some things maybe even different from the offline qualifiers, right? So change is still happening. Curious to see how it continues to pan out here in the preseason. But we also have a lot of new faces. I think that's also very exciting here for Kart Rider Drift.
This is going to be the best shot the rookies have. In Preseason 1 already, a team like Aura, it wasn't included in the roster of professional teams. So we've had a bit of mixed expectations for them, but they really showed up. And it was as if they are a professional team. And I'm sure that here in Season 2, we might see that as well happening again with some of the new teams like Potential we'll see today and ShowTime as well.
Yeah, I mean, there again, not only are there kind of new banners that kind of players are regrouping around, maybe creating new rosters, even with some of the older names, but then entirely new player names as well. But here is the overview of their team match. Just as a reminder, if you're perhaps even new to Kart Rider Drift League, we have team matches and solo matches, so kind of two parts to this entire league. But we have 8 teams, so we have KWANGDONGFREECS, Live Sandbox, of course, the 2 teams that finished top 2 last season. We've got RO and ROX esports returning as well. But then we have Sensation, Potential, ShowTime, and Seraphic. And I mean, sure, Sensation, of course, they're returning. They re-qualified through the qualifiers in the team matches. But a lot of these other banners, I mean, new faces in terms of banner and player names.
It's definitely good to see Sensation back because they're a team that, it would be awkward to have them not in the KDL Preseason 2. And the team track list for speed, it has changed a little bit. We have 4 tracks that are new coming into Season 2.
Yeah, of course, we have the WKC tracks that were newly introduced here into this season of the game itself. And then Mine 3 shortcuts entering in for the speed matches. So a little bit of a change, but of course, a lot of classics still remaining. So this is the other question, right, is how much have people practiced the newer tracks returning? And then same thing for item mode. A couple track changes, we should say, especially, something like Village Clock Tower Crossing. While the map itself is fairly familiar, we didn't have it in the league last season, or last preseason for the item mode.
Speaking of Shark's Wake, that one really sticks out to me as well because the name, just Shark's Wake, it just builds up so much anticipation for me.
Yeah, I mean, there's some fun ones, and, item mode, again, while the tracks themselves sometimes may lend themselves to be simple, it's more about the timing. Do you really understand the strategy? Because it is different. I mean, we look at some of the pre-interviews with the players. They say a lot of strategy involved, and a lot of that happens because of these patch notes, Peter.
The patch notes have been super impactful, especially in item mode. Balloons being the new addition to the Preseason 2 of KDL. You can see the effects for common, fine, and rare. It's different, so a lot of strategies you can take around that, as well as EMP wave being huge, blocking out magnets.
Yeah, I mean, again, some of these changes now were initially in, about a month ago, of course, when the new season was introduced in the game, but then just last week, some additional changes like the EMP wave now blocking the magnets, the magnet being nerfed even further, Angel Armor now hitting a bit of a nerf as well, so really trying to maybe shift the item mode into a bit more of an aggressive meta here. We'll see how that pans out. Already we saw some changes during the offline qualifiers, but now with these additional changes, things are going to be different. Namely also UFO, like if your team's holding that first place, you're not going to have a chance to get it. So there should be a lot of strategy behind, do we get one, try to store it up, maybe save that up for later, because with the balloon now existing, it's really kind of nerfed the effect of things like the missiles.
Yeah, Water Wisp and Water Bomb in return kind of got buffed, we can say, because now they are the stronger alternatives where they're not getting countered out by a balloon. And we love seeing Water Bombs, especially catching 4 players off guard. It can be absolutely game-turning.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen some big ones last preseason as well, even in the offline qualifiers, especially with, certain tracks like Clock Tower Crossing. There are some awesome ways to use those water bombs, so curious to see how that all pans out. Again, I think, maybe the biggest changes is going to be that item mode, right? Those item aces and the coaching, if they do have coaching staff, how have they adapted to the new meta? Now we're looking at today's matchup, of course. On the weekends, we have team matches and solo matches, so we'll start with the first 2 team matches you see on the screen, and then Group A of the solos.
I'm really excited to see this matchup coming in. It's going to be ROX versus ShowTime, so it's a professional team that has already had a good showing, especially through Jung, whereas ShowTime, it's a lot of rookies making this lineup, and of course, KWANGDONGFREECS and Potential, it's the same storyline there.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, in Group A, I mean, Group A is already pretty stacked with the likes of NEAL and Cool, the first 2 finishers, right? The preseason 1 champion in Cool, and the second place runner-up in NEAL already being there, and then World also being in that final 8 in that last preseason. But we do have some other strong names and a couple new ones as well trying to enter into the solo matches, and we have more groups as well. And namely, I just want to kind of tease that for you if you haven't been following the qualifiers, because of the way that they were opened up this time, Jung will be showing up in one of the later groups as well, so that's exciting.
Jung, he's definitely been at the top of everyone's list to watch out for when it came to the ace matches, which is where your individual skill and speed really shines. And I also want to point out World, who's in Group A. He's the guy who had 4 wins for his team, KWANGDONGFREECS. Only 1 win behind Jung if you look at it that way, so I have really high expectations for World coming into Season 2 as well.
Yeah, again, I mean, it should just be a great preseason. I think the team matches, especially with now, again, the patch notes kind of shaking things up. Obviously, even in the speed mode, the balloon's having a bit of an effect in terms of really increasing the amount of boost gauge you gain naturally. So that should change the timings up a little bit as well for teams, especially in team mode, right? Because now you have that double boost gauge in team mode. It's different if you've only been playing solos, right? In team mode, you got to kind of balance out both team boost and then just the regular boost you can get on your own as well. So curious to see how this all shakes up. But then in solos, it's, all gloves are off. It's just a free-for-all.
Yeah, and then speaking of balance that you were going about, I really like that ROX gained a new form of team balance through their player Ding, because Ding has been known to be a player in Preseason 1 that had a great balance of both speed and item. And you have to remember that ROX was a team where, because their item mode was so weak, that's why they relied on Jung. So hopefully now with Ding being in the lineup, they don't need to rely on Jung to constantly be the hero for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? Because as spectators and casters, we love to see ace matches with Jung. It's exciting, but if you're ROX and maybe a fan of ROX, as great it is to see him in ace matches, you don't want to have to rely on that, like you said, Peter. So curious to see if these roster changes make a difference. We will be bringing on the players to the stage, and first up, it's going to be SEONGNAMROX. Now, you'll notice they have a new sponsor name. It's actually one of the cities here in Korea that is really investing into esports, really trying to support a lot of these different teams, and their latest edition is going to be ROX Esports here in KDL.
I am from SEONGNAM myself, so I'm very happy to see some of these naming sponsors coming in. And of course, as we mentioned, ROX, they have Ding replacing their previous player, which is VEGA. He is now sitting on the bench on the sidelines for a bit. ROX is sporting the first 6-man lineup we've seen in KDL.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Do they really utilize it, or is it a matter of trying to see how things work out with Ding? We'll have to wait and see. But for now, of course, just the 5 members entering for this matchup against ShowTime. And this is pretty much as kind of rookie, as amateur as you can get. And what I mean by that is this entire roster, they barely have any experience on the stage.
And they are super young. They're the rookies of the rookies, trying to replace all the boomers, so to say. Of course, Braun, he's the only one who's had some Kart Rider League experience, also being the oldest in the group. Hopefully, he's able to bring these players, the youngsters, together in cohesion.
I love it. Ghost, you can tell just for the walkout, he's like, wait, like, do I keep going? Like, where do I go? Where do I stand? I mean, you can just see how green they are. And listen, I mean, nerves are probably going to play an effect, but at the same time, we're in a new era of Kart Rider, right? We're here with Kart Rider Drift. It's still the preseason. This is where you want to start to try to make a name for yourself. We need this new generation to start to really shine.
And their team name is already a great way to show off ShowTime. It means as long as they deliver, you know you're in for a good show.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, like you mentioned earlier, Peter, we had some other amateur teams last preseason that really showed off some great moments. So curious to see how it goes. And now ROX, they're accepting it themselves, right? They said, okay, by recruiting thing, we're now trying to balance out both speed and item mode. They know that that was one of their weaknesses. And you'll also notice if you look at the builds, the cart body builds here, ever since the changes to a lot of these carts having that 7-point option, we're seeing a lot of differences. For a while, a lot of people said, okay, coming into preseason 2, 5072 is going to be the answer, but we're still seeing a lot of mixes. And now, with some new carts appearing as well, also should note, cart bodies were adjusted a bit in last week's patch, right? So minecart not going to really just run supreme any longer.
Absolutely, as we see ROX saying a cotton light bat didn't hurt, right? Take a proper beating today and wake up.
Yeah, just trying to tell them, right, the offline qualifiers, this is nothing compared to really coming up on stage facing off against a pro team. You know, it's just kind of comparing that qualifiers to a Nerf bat, and we'll see. I mean, ROX, at least in speed mode, and if it goes to ace matches in the form of Jung, they have been absolutely dominating here in Kart Rider Drift League.
On the other hand, for ShowTime, if they win in speed mode, then they should have a lot of confidence in their belts because they have had a great performance in item mode comparatively in the qualifiers up to the KDL, as we see them say. It's our debut match today. Hey, you too? Yeah, me too. What would veiled performances of ShowTime be like?
Yeah, I mean, again, like we mentioned earlier, most of them, it is going to be their debut match. So really, they can't really rely on each other to say, hey, just like keep us together. It's all of their first times here on the stage for KDL. And maybe that works to their favor. As their bio is saying, right, we've kind of been under wraps. No one really knows what we do, what we're good at. Try to see if they can catch ROX by surprise in the opening match. And the hunt for the weakest pro team begins. I mean,
oh man,
it's factual, right? There's currently 3 pro teams in KDL, right? It's ROX, and then we've got KWANGDONGFREECS and Live Sandbox, and quite frankly, unfortunately for ROX, you're going up against the 2 best teams in Kart Rider.
Yeah, ROX definitely could be seen as the weakest of 3, as you said, Will. So hopefully ShowTime is able to find the weakness in their shield today. As I mentioned earlier, you know, as long as you can make it to item mode with a win in your pocket for speed, that could be what you need as ShowTime.
Yeah, and we're looking at the speed track list. We should mention ShowTime won the coin flip, so they took speed priority, and again, no surprise there. I mean, SEONGNAMROX, they used to be known for having a weak item mode, so ShowTime confident that they can win in that no matter what. And they'll be picking up one of the newer circuits that showed up here for the new season of the game, WKC Singapore Circuit, the first pick.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see that as our first track right off the bat, and then of course, followed by a track priority placed on Terracotta Twister from ROX, a track that we're all very familiar with. It can be tricky, especially due to the middle phase where everyone can fall off the map.
Yeah, and then I'm kind of surprised ShowTime going for Zigzag Timberland. I mean, if you can keep the lead there just because of how tight things can get towards the end and the little hairpins, maybe you'll be able to keep it up. But my eyes are all on that first track, right? Going to WKC Singapore Circuit. If ShowTime can kick things off with a win there, maybe we get a much more extended race than we came in expecting for day 1. Peter, well, we're getting ready for track number 1. Ladies and gentlemen, we are kicking off preseason 2 of the Kart Rider Drift League, and we will begin on WKC Singapore Circuit. The race begins as we kick off this new preseason of KDL.
It's super exciting to get to see the field of Singapore Circuit. I love the aesthetics here, and we're seeing Ding being that runner for ROX right now. That's exactly what you want to be in as ROX.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it in their bios. Of course, we have a little sheets kind of telling us what their bios is pre-submitted by the teams themselves, and they even say Ding's just that guy who's just going to race for us. He's just meant to drive, and Jung's actually meant to hold that middle of the ground and then support in any way he can.
Yeah, right now ROX, they have a pretty dominating field on the top half. It's only Spell trying to block out Monster and FaZe. That strategy is paying off so far. Ding is pretty much uncontested. Jung trying to deny Ghost that pass-through.
Yeah, but Ghost is doing a decent enough job to always be in contention, right? He's trying to keep up, and Jung says, okay, you know what, I'm going to try to really get ahead so that Ghost has to keep on worrying about me. See if Jung can continue to put on the pressure. Now it's up to Duzzi. Can he knock out Monster so Monster can't get up close? Monster and Ghost are trying to double team to get up front.
But right now, it's still Ding in the lead, 2-3 being held by ShowTime. However, Fleur and FaZe all the way down in 7-8. ROX is looking really solid.
Yeah, Ding is kind of shooting forward, right on the straightaway. He was able to gain so much ground. And right now, ShowTime, they're so busy dealing with Jung that they can't even keep Ding in their own crosshairs.
Yeah, Ghost is losing these body checks against Jung right now. He's completely surrounded by 4 members of ROX. FaZe, he's trying to step up, but Duzzi is too far ahead.
Yeah, I mean, this is a 2-lapper, Peter, and I'm quite frankly not seeing any way where ShowTime can really break through the ranks here. I mean, just look at the way that they're lined up. ROX, they're not only making sure that they can line up to really support each other, but they're also just spread out enough that they could always body check for each other, right? Make sure that they're not getting passed at any point by surprise. FaZe trying, and Spell just cuts right back into the corner.
Oh yeah, right now Duzzi and Jung did fall down to 7 and 8. It is the opening now for ShowTime, holding on to that 4-5-6. They need to pass Spell somehow.
Yeah, I mean, but with the 4-5-6 ShowTime, if they finish this way, it should be good. Can they block off Duzzi? And they will do it, actually.
Whoa.
Wow, with the 2-4-5-6, I take that back. I mean, it was really looking like the entirety of ROX should be safe, but as they were too busy trying to block off that kind of 3rd seed spot, they ended up falling behind in a couple of those last corners, and ShowTime barely able to close out against Duzzi.
We're in for a rookie ShowTime. The focus between these players were absolutely a treat to watch. Jung and Duzzi, you know, we've seen them constantly go for the body checks to keep the members of ShowTime behind, but as soon as they made a mistake and they missed it, you know, they were able to pull through with a very clutch formation.
Well, okay, ShowTime, I mean, I almost wrote them off as well, but they are able to make things happen. But that was Singapore Circuit, that was their pick. Right now, that is a track that has kind of returned, I should say, here in this new season of the game. Of course, a track that has existed in the past, but with a couple changes of its own. And now we will be going to a track that ROX should be very familiar with, even within Kart Rider Drift. It's going to be Terracotta Twister.
It's definitely a... we could say a track that favors the veterans. They've had more practice playing in the Twister, especially on stage where, you know, the nerves can actually change the outcome of your skills, because you can't really play at your best when you're feeling nervous. However, we are ready now for track number 2. It is Terracotta Twister. Off we go into round number 2. The previous strategy for ROX has been keeping Ding in the lead, and so far they are looking to do the same.
Yeah, and Ding, I mean, he had no problem, right, keeping up that 1st place position. It was really about, can the rest of his team get enough of a spot, right? Whether it's the 1-2 finish, whether it's something just as safe as 1-3-5-7, whatever it may be, you're kind of putting Ding in as the guarantee, as the insurance plan that you're always going to have that point lead in 1st place, and then you figure out the rest from the get-go. And Jung, looks like this time the plan is, okay, let's just get the 1-2, let's just dominate this race, see if we can keep that up. Spell now given the duty to block off the middle of the path.
This is looking pretty bad for ShowTime. This is a 2-lapper, so they still do have some time. We saw a completely out-of-line move there going off the field. Now it's just ROX maintaining 1-3 so steadily.
Yeah, FaZe kind of got knocked away from the corner and didn't want to risk getting spun out or dropped, so he just takes a wide corner. And we haven't actually seen that happen in the Tomb section in Terracotta Twister here in the pro matches. So curious to see, I mean, does he have enough to catch back up? Currently, he's right back up to 5th place, but it's still a decent kind of ways to get to that way front. Ding and Jung so far ahead, we can see that on the mini-map. It's going to be quite tough for ShowTime to catch up in any capacity.
During the team interview, ShowTime said their win condition heavily depends on how well Flare does, and Flare has been sitting at 8th place since the race began, and that hasn't been changing at all, so they need to buy more time for Flare to be able to catch up.
Yeah, but even just in the middle of that first lap, we could tell that ROX was quite ahead, even in boost gauges.
Oh,
and
Ghost!
I mean, he had to do whatever desperation he could to really try to get closer to the first and second place, and he's actually going to give up even third place in that one. So in terms of overall team points, ShowTime not going to have a chance. Ding and Jung will safely arrive in the 1-2 punch, even getting that third place for safe measure.
The veterans of Terracotta Twister are here to show up and say it's too early for the rookie show to happen, and honestly, this is what we expected out of ROX. And honestly, they were maintaining this even in Singapore circuit. It was just one moment that ShowTime was able to utilize to be able to get in the front, and it seems like that is going to be the story between these two teams so far. ROX always in the lead, ShowTime looking for opportunities.
Oh, well, I mean, again, they're just kind of taking each of their tracks that they chose, so we'll have to wait to see. Now, of course, the rest of the track selection, it's all ones that we should all be familiar with, both in the game and in the tournament. We're looking at Ding here, who's continuing to do the job he was given, right? He's taken that first place, the first two places here in both races so far, so looks like he's a little nervous, right? Trying to prove himself in the ROX squad, but so far I don't think he has anything to be worried about.
Yeah, and I must highlight Duzzi as a player. I think that last season, many people credited Duzzi for the success of Jung being able to be that supporter to allow his team to get to those places, and he is doing that already here in day number 1 of Preseason 2. Ding just has so much support that it's so hard to break through.
Yeah, well, we're going to track 3, currently tied 1-1 in speed mode between these two teams. SEONGNAMROX versus ShowTime. Going to track 3 on Forest, the Zigzag Timberland. And they're off on Forest Zigzag Timberland. Duzzi doing what he can to make sure that his team can keep the lead. Him and Jung currently up in 1 and 2.
We were both surprised, Will, that it was ShowTime who would pick Zigzag Timberland as their track. So we are really getting to see some of that strategy happen right now. 2-3-4 for ShowTime. This is the best showing they've had in the earliest phases so far.
Yeah, I mean, it looks pretty stable. But again, this is one of those tracks that while if you have the lead, you might be able to body black, but the hairpins continue on for quite a bit here towards the later part of the track. And at that point, you get one draft, try to swing around on the outside and really take it out into the in-course on the next turn. Things could shift up. Monster currently holding on to first place, and Spell, now his job is, can you get into 1? If not, can you at least hold on to 2, and the rest of the pack try to get 2, 3, 4, or 4, 5, 6.
And Ding, he's stuck right now in the bottom 5, and if ShowTime can keep this up, that's definitely the win condition they need. However, Flare and FaZe completely fell behind, especially Flare. We can't even see him right now.
Yeah, Flare hasn't really been in the spotlight at all in this race so far, Peter, and I hate to say it, but I think if you're ShowTime right now, you kind of have to just disregard where he's at. If FaZe can even try to get into 6th place, you have a couple more options for ShowTime, but right now, Monster looks like he wants to contest for at least number 2, and Jung says no. He tries to aggress against Monster, and Monster is actually going to be forced to hit into the wall just a bit there.
Yeah, just absolutely a ping pong fest for Monster right now. He's trying to look for the inners and outers, but he keeps knocking into the members of ROX.
Yeah, and FaZe trying to play quite aggressively. He's going for those kind of slicing drifts even in the little sections, and while he bumped into the walls, he's able to keep up the boost to try to keep up, but Duzzi closes him out as they start to enter the hairpins.
But FaZe does manage to pass by now. Now he is holding that rear for Monster. 1, 2, 3 still being held very strong for ROX. Monster's doing all he can to come across, so is FaZe, now getting into that 3rd place spot.
You gotta at least break into 2nd, right? You gotta break apart that 1-2, because the 1-2 is a guaranteed win regardless of the rest of the positions, but they're aggressing a little bit too much, and as soon as one player gets blocked off, the entire team falls behind, and now it's a clean 1, 2, 3, 4 for ROX.
Duzzi completely blocked out the line from Ghost there, and after that, it seems all momentum is lost for ShowTime, and SEONGNAMROX with the 1, 2, 3, 4 finish.
Wow, Duzzi with a little celebration 360 at the end as well, a little bit of a spin turn. But yeah, you mentioned it, Peter. We called it during the race. As soon as Duzzi's able to block off 1, because they were all so close up against each other, ShowTime, the entire roster actually starts to fall apart as they're trying to avoid colliding even into each other. They're not able to really keep up any of their speed or the boost. And it is as big of a lead as it can be, right? 29-10, 1, 2, 3, 4 finish here for ROX Esports.
Yeah, now ROX Esports just needs one more win. So ShowTime, they need to somehow look for the comeback angle in the next track, which is chosen by ROX themselves. So it is looking pretty dire.
Yeah, and the next one's not going to be an easy one, right? We're going to Village Boom Hill Tunnel, a notably difficult track, and a couple nifty little things you can do, especially towards the end with the last jump and a couple of the shortcuts. But curious to see what ROX Esports' plan is. Now, we should mention, I mean, ShowTime, they still got item mode that they can bank on.
Of course, you know, you could always go to the ace match and pray that your member who represents your team can win against Show.
Yeah, I mean, that's always tough. But we saw it in that first replay. Player actually gets bumped out a little bit and hits the pillar on the first bridge, and he's not able to really try to catch back up until much later. He actually still does somehow try to get into the middle of the pack, but by then the entire team had let up the lead.
Those obstacles can definitely really mess you up. We've seen a lot of the players emphasize focusing a lot of their practice time on reducing mistakes rather than trying to pop off and be first place necessarily every time.
Yeah, it's about that consistency, especially in squad mode, so we'll see. Can SEONGNAMROX keep up the lead, try to wrap this up 3-1 in speed mode? We'll find out in Village Boom Hill Tunnel.
Off we go into round number 4. This is match point for SEONGNAMROX. They had really good showing so far today against ShowTime, and let's see if they can continue that.
All right, well, ShowTime, I mean, because the start is a bit wider, they have a bit of an easier time with the beginning, and Flare and Monster now trying to keep the lead, and this is what you mentioned, Peter. ShowTime has mentioned that they want Flare to perform well. They've already given him the first place, so with Monster, he's a little too busy trying to block, and he runs into the corner himself a third time in a row.
Yeah, but I kind of like it for Monster because I feel like it also threw off the lines of the members of ROX. However, the recovery is insane. This is why Jung is highlighted so much. Ding and Jung combo at 3-4. This is putting a lot of pressure on the 1-2.
Yeah, and Ghost, he knows that because of the way the rest of his teammates' positions are, he wants to try to just make sure they get the 1 and 2, but Ding, he's already putting pressure onto Flare as well, and all Ding is doing right now is trying to force mistakes. They're getting into the bridge. We're entering the last couple sections of the race.
And nobody took the different build on the bridge there. Everyone's sticking to the classic lines as we see now. Flare and Ghost, they're hitting the walls, but they're still holding that 1-3.
But Spell, he tries to greed on that shortcut a bit. Ghost will be able to close him out. Currently, a bit of a still chance for ShowTime. They're in the lead. Ding, if he can overtake first place, things might change, but still just holding on to a 1-point lead. Can ShowTime? They barely finish just enough to be able to keep the lead, and they will be taking it to another track.
Man, when I saw Jung coming in all of a sudden, I got a bit worried for ShowTime because the points were so close. They actually won 20-19, just a single point ahead. And it seems like we're going to match number 5, Will.
Yeah, we're going to that last track in speed mode already off the bat. And I'll say it, right? I'll be the one to say it. I'm going to be honest, it doesn't look good for ROX, right?
Definitely not.
As much as, yes, I'm all for new talent shining, it's great to see new generations, but ROX, I mean, speed mode was supposed to be where you were indomitable, and if you're already looking like you're not able to dominate some of these newer names that are showing up, oof, I don't know, that roster, it's not looking as stable as people would have wanted here in the opening match.
And on top of that, out of the rookie teams that we've seen coming into Preseason 2, ShowTime was the team that had the most amount of rookies possible. So ROX, they're definitely wanting to prove why they're the veterans here and take that match number 5, hopefully, because item mode, I might give a slight advantage to ShowTime over ROX.
Yeah, I mean, just because of ROX's record, right? Of course, they do have a roster change, and we'll see how that works out. But for now, it's still all about speed mode. We go to track number 5. It is Glacier Extreme Stadium. And they're off. Match point here for speed mode. Try to see which team can keep the lead in this team match before they go into item mode. Monster kicking things off with the lead here for ShowTime.
If we look at the positions, it's pretty spread apart evenly. There's no one that's taking too big of a lead, I was about to say, but 1-3-4 for ROX, that is that big lead they're looking for.
Yeah, and the front of the pack is starting to try to spread out the lead. Of course, the hairpins, the famous hairpins, show up once again here at the end for Glacier Extreme Stadium, and that's a decent chance for people to try to catch up, especially if there's a lot of battles. But a good block from Spell will keep Ghost at bay.
Ghost is supposed to be the runner for ShowTime. He's took a 507 to build, which is what the runners of the teams do, but so far it's always been Monster in the lead, just completely surrounded by the members of ROX.
Yeah, and if you really want to take advantage of that 507 too, you really got to be good about your boost management and your timings. And so far it's not. Oh no, ShowTime! They just get knocked all over the track. They're on the last jump.
Yeah, this is looking absolutely disastrous right now. Monster, he's so far away from even 1, 2, 3 to try to contest anything, and now even Duzzi, he's just gonna stroll right past and say, hey, your place is in 5th place, buddy.
Yeah, and Duzzi, I mean, he can play things fairly safely, right? And he can try to aggress against Monster, or even just block off another member of ShowTime. It does not look like there is a shot here for ShowTime. And I gotta say, yes, I love the aggression coming out from ShowTime. I love that they're trying to just gain whatever lead they can, but it's also leading to a lot of mistakes on a couple of these tracks.
Yeah, and Duzzi alone, he's keeping Ghost at bay, now trying to look for that press over, but how does it matter when Jung is so far ahead and he's only in 3rd spot?
Oh my god, is Duzzi gonna go for a straight boost here to try to knock off Ghost? We're not gonna find out, but it does look like both of them land safely on the mini-map, but at the end of the day, it's a 1-2, even a 1-2-3 finish for ROX, and they will be able to take that speed mode win.
I feel like they have to be so reassured right now. They can't be the happiest that they didn't have a clean sweep. They would have hoped for something like 3-1 at worst instead of going all the way to round number 5. But at least they won, because that's what matters. They bought some time. Even if ROX loses in item mode now, they have Jung for that ace match.
It always comes down to Jung. It's just... It's kind of one of those things where it's like, well, it's true, and he's looked so good, right? He hasn't lost yet in the ace match, so yes, I guess that's something you can rely on, but it also does feel kind of bad that you have to rely on that. We'll have to wait and see. All right, Ding just saying, all right, yep, it's fine. Wasn't even close, right? Was never worried. And they'll go through Ghost. We saw earlier he made a bit of a mistake on that Terracotta Twister, and he was kind of sheepishly laughing. But I would say, yes, mistakes were made, mistakes were shown, right? Even here, I mean, just trying to get a little too aggressive by the members of ShowTime. However, we can see why they made it through the qualifiers, right? The skill is definitely there. It's more about that consistency, more about that calmness to maneuver around the track.
And they were really focused throughout the whole time. Even when they lost, they didn't really seem bothered by it. You can see them going in the comms and really explaining to each other, okay guys, this is why we lost, we just need to do this better.
Yeah, and we're going to see that roster swap coming out for item mode plans. As item is showing up here for ROX Esports. Spell will be sitting this one out as they make that change. Again, if you're new to Kart Rider Drift League, this is pretty common in a lot of teams, especially if they have that 5-man roster, because item mode is a totally different style and different focus that you need to have.
And we see Fraud, the oldest member that we talked about for ShowTime, being that kind of leader figure that the youngsters kind of want to rely on for the shot calling, especially helpful in a mode like item mode.
Yep, so Fraud right here on the camera. He's warming up. Of course, he was sitting by watching that speed mode. I mean, I gotta say, if you're ShowTime, yes, it's unfortunate that you lost, but hey, you still made it a 3-2 in speed mode. Nothing to be, embarrassed about as you're going up against one of the pro teams here in KDL. Now you gotta focus up for item mode.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely a good thing for the mentality to be able to go all the way into that round 5, because that means you definitely showed your prowess before you went down. As we take a look at the item track list, London Knight, a very familiar one picked up by ROX first.
Yeah, we saw it being picked more and more, especially ever since Liv Sandbox showed, some good tech on that track. A lot more teams started to pick that one up, so ROX will be continuing that for track number 1. And then we go to Pharaoh's Pass, Town Hall, Cogwheel, and Motherlode. Fairly familiar tracks here, despite some of the changes that we've seen coming into the track list.
For sure. Pharaoh's Pass, Cogwheel Crush was the pick for ShowTime, so we're not getting to see some of the newest stuff like Shark's Wake. It was banned out by ROX Esports. I guess they haven't had best performances during practice on there.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's also just, you don't really know what works best, right? And if you're already a team that wasn't known for your item mode, you really want to work on the basics, the fundamentals. And again, not just the tracks, but the item mode meta overall in terms of just the pure chances that you have of getting certain items was changed coming into this preseason. And then a couple extra changes just this past week. So we'll have to wait to see what teams have figured out. But right now, it's going to be all about ShowTime. Can they bring this to an ace smash? Can they get the victory in item mode as we go into track number 1 on World Tour London Night?
Off we go. This is the first showing here in KDL Preseason 2 between ROX and ShowTime in item mode. Let's see what new meta they have experimented with during their practice.
Yeah, so overall, also something else we're seeing is, of course, the item log can now be toggled on and off in your own games as well, so we can really keep track of who's using what, whether it was successful, whether it was blocked, things like that over on the left side of your screens. That's been very nice to see here in these matches. But just if you haven't really been keeping up with the patch notes, something to note is basically the aggressive items, right? The attacking items, the general chances you have of getting them have been increased. Some of the defensive items has been decreased a bit. Meanwhile, if you're first place, you really are pretty much only getting shields.
Right, we are looking at that really happening right now. We saw the players with the shields. They were at the front absorbing a lot of the aggro. And right now we're looking at Duzzi holding on to that Lightning. And we know Lightning can be really strong, especially when your opponent doesn't have Angel.
Yeah, and of course he's got that EMP that can now block magnets as well, and that alone should be able to shut down a lot of the previous meta that we used to see that was solely focused around magnets and boosts. We'll have to see if that will be used, and so far it's already been cycled out. Now, one other thing to note is Angels. They only block one attack each at this point, so maybe we see that Lightning from Duzzi really play a role here as we go into the third lap.
He's definitely holding on to it. We know that... Oh, never mind.
Well,
he was using it right here.
Yeah, I mean, just trying to cycle through it so that they can have, keep the lead, see what else they can get. I mean, right now, ROX, they have double Angel, so they are able to still try to block off two things. They also have two EMPs, one being cycled out by Jung. I think Jung maybe wants to go for another shield, and he's going to get it, and that allows him to just use the Angel safely. Ding will use the Magnet. His teammate tried to jump up top. He's going to miss it, so Jung now getting back into first place.
Yeah, Ding really was looking for that momentum, but it was killed off. Now it's Duzzi and Jung in the lead. The Water Wisp is going to connect. Flare looking for the advantage.
Oh, and the boost comes in for Fraun, and he's been saving that up, and he gets a clean finish in first place on track number 1.
A great showing from ShowTime right off on track number 1 of item. World Tour London Night was picked by ROX themselves, so what a great way to tell them, even if you guys pick the track, we are simply more organized when it comes to item.
Yeah, and I gotta say that kind of attempt, I like the idea, right? Using the magnet on Jung to try to get up to the upper part of the track. Make sure you can try to keep that lead with the built-in boost on the track. However, not only was Duzzi missing it himself, but then Jung was also slowed down just a bit as he was trying to knock off to the side to make way for Duzzi. And at the end of the day, both of them not able to keep the lead against ShowTime.
I really like that ShowTime was able to capitalize off of the plan of ROX kind of coming to a falter there through unfortunate circumstances. You can tell, looking at ShowTime, that this is a team that's not really your typical rookie. They know what they're doing, they know what got them to this phase of KDL, and it seems like they're not afraid to keep showing their cohesion.
Yeah, and I gotta say, the more you think about it, I mean, just those boosts on their own might provide some more value. We'll talk about that a little bit more as we go into the track. It is track number 2 as ShowTime currently leads 1-0 on Desert Pharaohs Pass. And they're off. Track number 2, ShowTime leading 1-0 on item round, trying to bring this to an ace match.
As we see the shield being held by Flare, looking to absorb that missile coming out, of course. And the EMP waves are a bit early right now. They're not going to see much use.
Yeah, those will probably get cycled out just a bit here. Flare actually holding on to 2. Definitely doesn't need both of those. Oh, water bombs coming out as well. We talked about it during the pre-show or opening of the show rather, where water bombs and Wisp, they gained a little bit more relative strength because of the balloons now being able to kind of nerf out the effects from the missiles. However, that recent patch, that's also added effects for the balloons against the water Wisp and balloons as well, so you can get out of that lock just a bit quicker.
Speaking of the patch, Will, you were talking earlier about the boost, so you could maybe elaborate on that a bit more now.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to mention right now that magnets have been nerfed in their strength as well, and then on top of that, you know, them being able to get EMP'd out. There's a lot of things now that are going to have a counter. Meanwhile, the boost itself, I mean, when you use it, you're going to shoot forward, right? You know exactly what you're getting. You know the value you're getting, so it's a bit more of a guaranteed usage. Of course, you can still be body blocked or hit by a water balloon, things like that. Curious to see if that turns into the game plan as we get lined up for the last track of each race.
Yeah, now we're seeing Ding. He's completely out of the minimap to the right. He has a huge lead right now, and the magnets are being held by FaZe. The question is, can he even get in range to target Ding? Look at him on the map.
Yeah, what happened? As I was talking, I didn't even realize that's how far ahead he was.
Where's Ding?
Oh my gosh, and he's still got another shield going. I mean, the only thing that's going to slow him down is going to be a UFO. Okay, now he's out of shields. Okay. Yep. Yeah, but again, the balloon, right? It makes it so the missile only has
again.
Okay, that's enough. That can keep him at bay, and FaZe will be able to go through it again. He's getting hit by literally everything. FaZe trying to keep the lead, but he keeps getting locked up. You saw how quickly he was able to get out because of that balloon.
Everyone's getting bullied right now, up and top, spinning. This is a dancing competition.
Yeah, but Jung he does have that boost, and Ding getting into first place. He gets locked up, but Jung had that boost. He has another one as well.
Gets spun again into the barricade.
Duzzi, can he finish? He will be able to secure that first place for his team.
Oh my goodness, the offensive items are just coming through in Preseason 2, left and right, back and forth, and I'm loving it, Will.
Yeah, I mean, this is a nice change, right? It is a little chaotic for us. We have to follow the action, but that's what we're here for, and I gotta say, as chaotic as it is, I like that we're seeing just a lot more aggression here in the item mode. We really didn't know what was gonna happen. I thought Jung was just clear to go because he had double boost going into that last couple corners.
Yeah, ROX, they were just so on point in this round number 2 of item mode, we must say, because I thought when Jung got just completely locked out by all those items that it could have been dire for them, but all the members were right behind him and they were able to keep pick back up where he was.
Yeah, so ROX will be able to even things out. I mean, that was really anybody's race, so ShowTime, I'm sure they're a little miffed they weren't able to secure that. Their attacks were good. But however, as they were trying to get into that first place, they get hit by one of those UFOs that was saved up for a long time. Again, we got to mention that UFO doesn't come by too easily, especially if you're in the lead, you're not getting it. So sometimes if you're on track 2, maybe you save it up.
Yeah, I really like the shot calling coming out from Fronder, so I'm excited to see what more they will show us in round number 2. It will be, or round number 3, it'll be in Village Town Hall. Off we go. We begin this crazy hectic item round 3. I'm loving this new meta we're seeing in Season 2, Will.
Yeah, it's a great change. And of course, this is one of those tracks that, you know, has been renewed and returned for Kart Rider Drift. It wasn't in when the game launched. We're seeing it now in this current season of Kart Rider Drift. For those who are familiar with the original game, of course, it had a theme change now coming over to the Village theme. And I kind of like it, right? The fresh colors of the Village theme. It looks nice here for Town Hall.
Yeah, now we're seeing the players. They're definitely having so many missiles and water bombs. That's dominating the inventory by far, which is unlike the players of last season where they were trying to pick up the boosters and the magnets even in lap number 1.
Yeah, I mean, you try to save that up. If you get another boost, you use it, things like that. But right now, especially now, we see a lot of aggression with the missiles. I mean, we're seeing the log just really rack things up. And the reason they're able to just quickly fire it off is because you're not going to knock someone completely out of the race anyway, right? It's just a spin out now with the balloons. I mean, in the pro matches, everyone's going to have that balloon stocked up. And so it's no surprise that it's constantly being used to try to keep contention. But again,
monster.
We're seeing another player way out in front. And we should note, he has an EMP. And being in first place, he has a great chance of continuing to stock up on shields. That missile is going to hit, and it does slow him down a lot there as he's actually just trying to wait to pass things by, try to regain some of those items.
falls back all the way into 6th place off of that Monster. Now, looking to gain some of that lead again, but he crashes right into the barricade. Now, it's Duzzi holding that lead for ROX. A lot of the players are kind of balanced out right now in the front four.
Yeah, and because of the item changes, we see that a lot of these players are trying to keep their distance or maybe stop in first place to try to make sure they have a better advantage of gaining some of these items. Now, Fran going to start shooting forward. He does have a magnet in his own pocket as well, but the most important thing is double angel here for ShowTime.
ShowTime absolutely looking pretty good right now in their position as Jung, the 3rd place contender, he does get spinned out. Now there's 500 meters left. Jung uses the magnet, but it does get canceled out.
Yeah, and another angel popped and another shield, but the UFO isn't good enough. Flare trying to block him off, but he gets hit by the Wisp, and Jung will be able to slide right through the finish line.
Huge Wisp there. That was the absolute perfect timing you can get on that item. And now ROX, we were talking about them having a weak item mode, but already up to 1 against ShowTime. This could be that new SEONGNAMROX buff we're looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. You love to see it. They don't look as lost in the item mode anymore. Now, I'm sure even, all the players currently participating in KDL Preseason 2, I'm sure all of them agree that, okay, we still don't know what the exact meta is just yet, right? We even had a couple extra changes last week coming into the league. We'll have to wait to see how things shake up. However, ROX, the calling seems to be there. Their head seems to be in the game. It's a great change to see.
Plan Z, the item ace, coming in absolutely clutch for ROX, and we talked about Ding being a player of balance, being good at both item and speed, and so far he has shown that.
Yeah, and using the magnet early on just to catch up. Now, Flare thought he was safe, but the UFOs come out, and he has another shield, but this is what we're talking about. The Water Wisp now has so much value because it still puts you up in the air. You stop entirely. Sure, the balloon lets you get back in track just a bit quicker, but it just stops you dead in your tracks.
If only his teammate had an Angel for him there, which is why we keep emphasizing Angel as such an important item. But now, we are ready for round number 4. This is match point for ROX in Factory Cogwheel Crush.
SEONGNAMROX trying to close things out by winning both speed and item mode. They want to prove that they don't need to rely on those ace matches anymore.
As we see a bunch of shields across the board, as well as Angel in that top half of the standings. And FaZe looking kind of sus right now with the double water bomb. I want to see how he uses that.
Yeah, curious to see if he really holds on to it for the most opportune moment. I mean, there are a couple opportunities here on this track of Cogwheel Crush, but not all the time. There's still a little bit of leeway, as we saw there, around the radius of that water bomb.
Yeah, now Ding holding on to that double water bomb as well, but there's a lot of shields and angels as a response to it, so I'm sure the players are not too concerned. We're looking at a 2-lapper, so this is going to be a bit more fast-paced.
Yeah, and we mentioned it as we were looking at the patch notes at the beginning of the show, but of course, Angel now, the Angel Shield has been changed, so it only blocks 1 attack per person anyway. So, Jung is able to just kind of negate that missile entirely by going through the shortcut there. Love to see that.
Yeah, that was a great usage of that one. As we see now, ROX, Lancy being in the lead pretty strongly as we enter lap number 2. Fran is doing what he can to make sure he's kept in check.
All right, so Flanzy, while he was slowed down just a bit, he's happy to kind of let go of that first place. See if they can get any UFOs to try to really slow down Flare.
My.
Oh, good water bomb.
Yeah, that locked out 2 members of ROX specifically, and now 3 members of ShowTime at the top looking really good.
Yeah, and Flare looks fairly safe. I mean, no EMP in hand just yet, but Fran's got one in his own pocket. It's got a lightning to respond as well. Flare still gets a shield. No longer, though. He can't get that quick boost right off the drop from the Wisp either.
The chain attacks absolutely killed momentum there. Now Ding, the water bomb goes amiss, and now Ding is in the lead.
Yeah, he still has 1 more shield, so unless a UFO comes out, it does come out. Fran's got it ready to go. Ding will be slowed down. John gets slowed down by a missile as well. Monster trying to catch up here towards the end.
Monster holding on to that water bomb. He's just going to throw it out to Cycle. He's got a magnet and a booster now. That could be big because Ding does not have an EMP wave.
Yeah, Monster's in prime position. He already uses his boost because they still have other members trying to catch up. However, Planzy trying to make sure he stays in the lead, and Ding is safe. No, it's actually going to be his teammates who boost and magnet off of each other over the top there on the shortcut. And it's going to be ROX wrapping things up 31 in item mode.
The parade of ROX, as we saw the players come in, we were looking at what is the color? Is it blue, red? But it was all red, and my goodness, ROX coming in 3-1 into item mode. That is a great way to start off their season here in Preseason 2.
Yeah, not something that we could say often, or at all really, for ROX in Preseason 1, right? It always went down to the wire to that ace match, but yes, while the speed mode, ShowTime put up a pretty decent fight, I would say the improvements in item mode absolutely present here for SEONGNAMROX.
And I guess the one sad takeaway is that on day one, we're not going to get to see Jung pull off his magic, continue on his winning streak, get his 6th one unofficially, you know, if you connect the 2 preseasons together. But that also just shows how much stronger this new lineup, the SEONGNAM buff, did for ROX Esports.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing. While we didn't get to see him in the ace match, of course, now he is in the solo matches as well, right? He got through the qualifiers with no surprise. So you'll still see him race more often than not here in KDL Preseason 2. But for today, ROX will make short work of ShowTime with winning both speed and item mode.
And I must give props to ShowTime. Despite having had a poor performance, I must say, from their runner today, Monster was a player that was constantly just in the higher ranks and a player that absolutely stands out. So as long as the other players are able to put on a better form next time and support Monster more, I'm sure they'll be one of the stronger rookie teams that we've seen so far.
I also just want to give a quick shout out to ShowTime's logo. It kind of looks like a logo of a show on, you know, kind of Saturday morning cartoons or something like that. Yeah. It's kind of a nice little throwback to that type of design. So all props to him. But I got to say, I think you keep your eyes on this team, right? Yes, there were mistakes, but if you clean that up, if you gain your experience here during Preseason 2, whether it's the entire squad or whether it's just a couple of these rookie players, I think they'll continue to make a name for themselves here in Kart Rider Drift League.
And I must say, the body checks have been on point, just going crazy. All the players have been constantly trying to throw off the lines of other players, even at the cost of their own lines. For instance, bouncing off the wall multiple times. And sometimes it has led to disastrous results where you end up falling back to 7 or 8 and you can't recover. But other times it has also worked out well, so it's kind of like a risk to reward balance.
Yeah, and of course, on the other side for ROX, even within the squad match of speed mode, they weren't entirely relying on Jung anymore, right? There was a lot of teamwork being shown there. If they're able to get Ding in front and then Jung or Duzzi into 2nd or 3rd place, then they feel pretty safe. The rest of them can kind of play that blocking role, the guard role for the rest of their team.
Thumbs up to ROX. They did a good job picking up Ding. It was the right thing to do. They got that item buffed.
It was the right thing to do. Yep. It was the right thing to do. Sorry, I had to chime in there for that one. But yeah, you're right. I mean, yes, again, the scoreline maybe a bit closer than you would have wanted just because ROX is a pro team. They looked good in the speed mode in last preseason, but the item mode definitely looks a lot better. And maybe part of that is also the meta change. Maybe it suits them better to just kind of go all out on aggression, cycle through those items, and really figure out, kind of keep everyone on their toes until that last second.
That's a great point, actually, because I feel like when it comes to the speed mode of Kart Rider Drift, you can't really get too much of a meta shift there unless you change up some of the fundamentals, like bringing in balloons that do completely different effects. But for item mode, it's all about the items, right, that decides the outcome of the match, because something like we've seen earlier, a water wisp that's timed perfectly when your opponent doesn't have an angel can completely stop a player out of 1st place into 2nd, 3rd, 4th.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're going to continue to see that evolution here throughout the Preseason 2. So we'll have to wait till things kind of shake up. But it's no longer just about the madness and boost. But ladies and gentlemen, we do have more matches ready for today, as you can see on your screens. The next one is going to be the reigning champs of Preseason, KWANGDONGFREECS, going up against another new team, Potential. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, it's match number 2.